Have you ever felt like your emotions have hijacked you? One minute you're calm, the next you've snapped at someone, or you've avoided the hard conversation, or perhaps you've completely lost focus. Well, most people think that emotional freedom is luck, that some days you have it, some days you don't. But the truth is, you can learn to master your state on purpose. And today we're talking about emotional mastery, nervous system alignment, and how daily calibration can become your reset button. Welcome to The Brain Changers, a podcast about learning how to revolutionize the way you think and live by mastering your mind. We're your hosts, mother and daughter duo Rebekah and Yvonne King from Moonbeam Monday. Our goal is to empower you to live the life you choose by teaching you how to retrain your brain. Some people tell us it sounds like mind control, and it is, but not the way you might think. This is about you taking control of your own mind, rather than letting your mind control you, so you can choose to live a life free from the expectations of others. No matter what you've experienced in the past, you can create positive change and transformation by learning how to master your mind. We know this because we've done it. Between us, we've survived cancer and stroke and eliminated debilitating anxiety and depression. We've turned our pain into purpose through the power of our mind, and we're now here to support and guide you to do the same. In this podcast, we share valuable insights about how your brain works, why you think, say, and do the things you do, how to begin the process of change, and why it's necessary. Because we know that when you change your mind, you change your life. Thanks for joining us. Let's go. Hello and welcome back to the Brain Changers podcast. I'm Rebekah King.
And I'm Yvonne King, and today we're tackling one of the most important skills that you'll ever learn, and that is mastering your state. Because when you can change your state, you can change your behaviour. And when you can change your behaviour consistently, you can actually change your life.
That's right. So let's start with what we mean by state. Right, your state is that mix of what your body is doing, what your mind is focusing on, and the meaning that you're giving to the situation. And remember, we are meaning-making machines. We're the only mammal on the planet who puts meaning behind things. And sometimes we put meaning where there is no meaning. So if you walk into a meeting confident, for example, with your shoulders back, you're breathing steady, you're telling yourself, I've got this, then you're going to speak more clearly. You might be more decisive. You might even inspire other people. But if you walk in all hunched over, your breathing is shallow and fast, and you're telling yourself in your head, oh, don't screw this up, then you're more likely to hesitate. You might hold back, or you might even regret saying nothing. You know, you might walk out of that meeting wishing that you'd said what you knew they needed to hear. So you're the same person, you've got the same skills, but you've got a completely different outcome. And that is the power of your state of mind.
Yes, it definitely is very powerful, isn't it? But it's not random either. It's actually shaped by the filters of our minds, your mind, my mind, our beliefs, our memories, values, and even the language we use with ourselves. Now, we've talked about this many times on these podcasts, but it's actually those filters that determine what you notice, and it's what you notice that shapes how you feel, and your physiology, or add that physiology to that mix, and that equals the state, your state. So your nervous system also gets involved here. Stress chemicals like cortisol and adrenaline can hijack you when your amygdala thinks that you're under threat. But when your nervous system is aligned and calm, your prefrontal cortex, the decision making, rational part of your brain, that can stay online. Now, we know what happens. I've just had this recently happen to me where my computer went offline. I had no internet and nothing can happen. It's a disaster. So that's the same for us. If that goes offline, then we're not thinking clearly, we can't achieve anything. So when we can choose our response instead of reacting on autopilot, this means that we've got emotional mastery. And it really comes down to this mastery of our nervous system. So, in short, then, this is why mastering our state is such a core pillar of our life. Because when we take responsibility for our state, we're no longer at the mercy of our circumstances. We can respond to situations rather than merely reacting.
That's right. And there is another layer that makes this even more powerful. Your brain loves to connect emotions with sensory cues, right? That's why a certain smell or a song can take you straight back to a memory. We've all experienced that. We get all the feelings that come with that. That's what's called anchoring, right? I have that every time I smell fresh cut grass. I'm back at sports day in primary school, right? Whenever I hear certain songs, I'm back in the clubs at 19, for example, right? That's what we call anchoring. And it's the same principle that Pavlov proved with dogs. You might have heard of Pavlov's principle. He paired a sound with food enough times, and eventually the sound alone made the dog salivate, even when there was no food around. All right. So with humans, the trigger could be, like I said, it could be a song, it could be a touch, a physical touch, it could be a phrase, anything. The amygdala and the hippocampus, they wire the emotional state to the cue, whatever that cue is. And here's the really cool part about this. We can do this intentionally. So we do it all the time, unintentionally, all of those examples I just gave you. But in coaching, we can do this intentionally. We help clients create anchors to recall confidence or a calm state or to focus on demand, right? So imagine being able to switch into your most resourceful state with a simple breath or a gesture or a word. It's incredibly powerful. And it's not just theory. Neuroscience shows the amygdala and the hippocampus wire emotional states to sensory cues, as I mentioned, which means you already have anchors running your life, right? The difference is whether they're set by accident or whether they're set on purpose. If you're listening to this thinking, I should be doing well, but something still feels off, if that sounds familiar, you are exactly who I created the Life Reset for. Maybe life looks pretty good on the outside, but deep down, you know you'd feel completely different if you had the confidence to back yourself. Maybe your brain just doesn't want to switch off. You're second-guessing decisions, replaying conversations, lying awake at night, going over the same things again and again. Or perhaps you're simply looking for direction, knowing you want more, but not sure where to even start. That's what the Life Reset is all about. It's not advice or quick fixes. It's about rewiring how your brain works so you stop getting stuck in the same old habits and finally create the change you've been craving. Imagine feeling clear, confident, and calm at work, at home, in your relationships without that constant mental drag. If you're ready for your reset, book a free connection call with me. Visit moonbeammonday.com.au or find the link in the show notes. Now, the best part is you don't have to wait until you're in crisis to practice state shifts. That's often a mistake that we make. We wait until we're feeling anxious to breathe differently or to practice a certain tool. But actually, we can make these or create these on demand. We can make them more of a normal part of our life if we actually practice these state shifts. So, simple tools like breathing, I mentioned, posture and language can actually reset you in the moment. So, pair them with anchors and daily practice, daily calibration, and you can start every single day from a place of alignment instead of waiting until something stressful happens and you're suddenly knocked off balance.
Yes, because that's not the time that you can really search your mind and bring those things to the fore, is it? Because
That's
you're in a state of distress. So we know that really emotional freedom, it isn't a fluke. It's not something that just happens of its own accord. It's actually a skill. And it's something that anybody can master with practice.
right.
And when we can master our state, we can stop being hijacked by our emotions and we can start being in control of them or steering them instead. And that is how we create real freedom.
That's right. And it's not just a nice idea. As we mentioned, there's real neuroscience behind this. At the center of your amygdala, that's your essentially your brain's alarm system. When it detects threat, it kicks you into fight or flight mode. We've all heard about that. That's when you feel jumpy or anxious or you're reactive. And the thing is that your brain doesn't know the difference between a, a strongly worded email and a lion chasing you. All right. It deems both of them to be a threat. Now, your prefrontal cortex, which you mentioned earlier, that's right at the front of your brain. Now, this is the part of your brain that helps you regulate emotions, plan, and make clear decisions. But it only stays in charge if your state is calm and resourceful. All right. So when you're under stress, when you're essentially hijacked by stress, the amygdala takes over and your prefrontal cortex gets sidelined. Then the hippocampus, another part of your brain, this is what actually tags memories with emotion, right? Which is why a small trigger in the present can bring back an old feeling from years ago, like that one I mentioned with smelling cut grass and being back at primary school on sports day. And your vagus nerve, which is the runs through your whole body from your brainstem down through your chest to your abdomen, it's like a brake pedal for your nervous system, right? And you can actually activate it directly through breathing and posture. It might sound too simple, but it is true, which is terrific because that's something that's available to us at any time, anywhere, and it's free, right? So here's what it comes down to. Your state is not random. It's your brain and your body working together, and you can influence it on purpose.
Yeah, so let's just take a look at how our state can shape our behavior. Now, I'm sure all of us can think back to a time when we were stressed.
Mm.
You might have avoided a task, you might have been short, snapped at someone or rude to them, or maybe you just procrastinated, you put the task off totally and altogether. Now, it could be even worse than that. Sometimes when we're stressed, we're so fearful that we can barely think
Mm.
any response at all. We're in a really bad place of fear. And that's where we just freeze. That's the freeze part
Mm.
of this whole equation, isn't it?
That's right.
Now, on the other side of things, think about a time that you were calm. You probably showed up with clarity, you were thinking straight, you could make clear decisions, you could make good decisions. And along with all of this, you probably even had the capacity for humor or kindness. You could think of other things as well.
Mm.
So when you look at it this way, it's the same person, it's the same skills, but what's different is the state. And when the state is different, you get different outcomes.
Exactly. And I want to give you a couple of examples just to really land this for you. So imagine at work, you're presenting to your team, you're in an anxious state, your shoulders are feeling really tight, you've got racing thoughts, and you're telling yourself, oh my goodness, I'm in front of the whole team, don't mess this up, right? You're likely going to stumble or miss your points. You might be talking so fast because your brain is going so fast that you miss whole chunks of information. It could be vital information. However, in a confident state, in that same scenario, if you're standing tall, you're breathing steady, you're focused on your message, you're in this calm, confident state, you are going to come across clear and credible. Your team are going to trust you. A team does not trust someone who comes across as all anxious and tense, right? We don't really want to be taking instructions from someone like that. We want to be taking instructions from or direction from someone who is confident in themselves and in what they're communicating with us. Another example for this might be you're going into a meeting to ask for a pay rise, right? If your state is doubtful, if you're not believing in yourself, if you're shrinking yourself, then you might soften your request. You might even apologize for asking for more money, or you might even talk yourself out of it and never ask and therefore never get a pay rise. But if you're in a grounded state, you sound assertive and believable. You are also going to be much more confident in explaining your value to whoever you're asking for the pay rise. So the ask hasn't changed, but your state has.
That's right. I mean, we sometimes refer to this as the vibes, don't we?
Yeah.
What vibrations we're giving out. Are they positive or are they negative? So the question then here is, how can we actually change our state in the moment, in real time, right here and now?
Mhm.
And here's four quick resets that you can use at any time. Now, the first one is a breath reset. One of the most powerful things we can do is just to slow the breathing down. Now, a very effective way of doing this is to just try 4 seconds breath in, 6 seconds breath out. And what that does is it activates the vagus nerve and it signals to your body that you're safe, that everything around you is safe. And that is one of the quickest and most effective ways that we can reset our nervous system. Another very powerful way is one we've already mentioned, the shift in our physiology. Roll your shoulders back, stand tall, look up, chin up. Even a short walk, can reset your state. So when we adjust our physiology in that way, we even feel more confident, we look more confident, but it sends that message to our nervous system. We can change our focus. We can start to ask better questions. Instead of why me? Why has this happened to me? We can replace that and say, well, what's one small step I can take right now that could change things for the better?
Mm.
There's lots of questions like this that we can just turn around, turn the situation around. And with that, it gives us the scope to start thinking differently and taking action, taking positive action. And of course, let's upgrade the way we talk. Notice what we're saying. We all tend to be quite dramatic in what we're saying. I'm devastated about this.
Mm.
That creates a very different atmosphere to just saying, well, I am disappointed. Same thing, but it has a kind of a different connotation. One is far more devastating than so, how we speak is actually most important. And just by being much more mindful of this, it can help us to be more resourceful and look for different solutions. So the key is practice. We talked about this being a skill before. It's something that we can all learn. It's not just for some privileged few. And the other key is don't wait for that feeling of being overwhelmed or in a situation where you are really struggling. Practice it beforehand, practice these measures so that you can sort of build a bit of muscle memory so that when you find yourself in the situation, you can instantly turn the situation around.
Yeah, I think that is one of the biggest key points, key takeaways here. And this, of course, is where emotional mastery comes in. All right. State management isn't about pretending that you're fine when you're not. This is not what we're talking about. We want to feel the feels. We want to actually feel those emotions, release them. This is about learning how to steer your nervous system back into alignment so that you can choose your response, not just react in a way. Because quite often we're reacting thinking, oh my goodness, I don't even want to be reacting in this way, but I don't know what's going on. And when you practice this daily, as you were talking about, what we call calibration, it's like updating your brain software every morning. So instead of waiting for life to knock you around when it gets stressful, because, spoiler, it will be stressful at times, you can start your day centered, clear, and ready.
That would be a great way to start the day, wouldn't it? It couldn't be
Absolutely.
better. So let's recap. Your state is the combination of what your body is doing and what your mind is focusing on and the meaning that you give it. So that state drives your behavior, and your behavior creates your results. So it's a sort of a stepped process, isn't it? One thing leads to another, leads to another. And neuroscience shows that we can deliberately shift our state through the things we just talked about, by the way, slowing down our breathing, our physiology, what we're focusing on, and particularly how we're talking, what words we're using. And lastly, anchors can let you lock in those empowering states so that you can call them up whenever you need them. And the key, of course, is when you practice this daily, we will find and experience emotional freedom. And we know that this is something that we can build. It's not something we just wait and that just happens to us. It's something that we have to develop and build for ourselves. So once again, that's everything that we've got time for in this episode today. But thank you for listening to the Brain Changes podcast. And if you know someone who's constantly being hijacked by their emotions, please share this with them. It might give them a whole new perspective on how to make that change.
Exactly. And remember, as always, to follow and subscribe to the Brain Changes podcast so you never miss an episode. And leaving a review, it really does help more people find us. And of course, we're very grateful for you taking the time to do so. So until next time, please remember, when you change your mind, you change your life. Bye for now. Thanks for listening to this episode of The Brain Changes. We hope you've enjoyed the conversation today. Please like and subscribe to stay up to date with all the latest episodes. Our mission is to reach as many people as possible to help them revolutionize the way they think so they can change their brain and create profound transformation. Please help us broaden our reach by sharing this episode with someone you know will benefit. And remember to tag us on socials at Moonbeam Monday and leave a review. And remember, when you change your mind, you change your life. We'll catch you next time for another episode of The Brain Changes.